Boom. All right, let's practice again. Here we go. Start our oval. Try to just go around and around, loosening up your hand. So it's not a full circle. We don't want a real round circle like that. That's not what we're aiming for at this point. We're aiming for kind of a longer circle, more like an oval. But we will eventually do our circle. We're just not there yet. Okay, let's do our J. Straight and curve a little bit. So instead of a real J where you curve a lot, that's not what we're aiming for in this case. You just want to go straight and curve just the tiniest bit. Now let's do it again. Straight and curve the opposite direction. And you're just practicing loosening up your hands, and we're just on the side of our paper, just practicing. Okay, let's try our comma. So the little short comma and the opposite direction. So these are things you're already familiar with. Does anybody have any trouble at this point doing their comma, their J, anything we've done so far? All right, let's move on. Let's practice diagonal. Just very straightforward. Try the other side, the other direction. Let's try horizontal, which is straight up and down. And I'm sorry, vertical, which is straight up and down, and then horizontal, left and right. Horizontal follows the horizon. Okay, now let's try some circles. So now we'll go back to that. So I will get rid of this X and let's try some smaller circles and go around and around and around. And remember, we are not stressing. This is just practicing, getting loose, using familiar shapes. Let's try half of a diamond. So it's like a triangle. Let me zoom in. And there it is. So half of a diamond shape. Let's focus that. Half of a diamond shape. Now let's try the opposite direction. Okay, so that's basically two diagonal lines and they're touching in the middle. All right, so if you take a look at the entire side of the page, we've been practicing here with some simple shapes. Do we have any questions before we go on and practice more familiar shapes? All right, now let's do some smiles and frowns in a happy face. So go on ahead and draw in a happy face, two eyes and a smile. Do it again. So happy face, two eyes, smile. Now try the frown. Happy face, two eyes, and the frown. Let's do that again. Happy face, two eyes, and the frown. Okay, did anybody have any trouble doing that? Good. All right. So now let's take this side of the paper away. So all you have to do is just fold and you're going to rip it. That way we can refer to it when we want to. So I'm just going to set it on the side here. Now I have a clean page to work with. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment. We're going to take that same practice that we started with and just fold it over, rip it off. That way you have a clean page, but it's still nearby so that you can refer to it. All right. So now what I want you to do is try to imagine the size of 1 inch in your mind, like in your mind's eye. 1 inch. So for many people, 1 inch can easily be estimated from your knuckle on your thumb to the tip of your finger. So the knuckle on your thumb that's closest to your finger, your thumbnail, to the very tip. So this distance here is about 1 inch for most people. Okay. If you want, you can grab a ruler, but it's not that serious. So now on our scratch paper here, let's draw a straight line, and then at the top, put a horizontal, and now 1 inch down, put a second horizontal. Okay, and this is approximately 1 inch. So let's try that again. Okay, so on our scratch paper here, do your straight line that's vertical, up and down. At the very top, put in your horizontal, sort of like a dash. Now from here, from the top of this, you're just going to eyeball where approximately is 1 inch. And let's do another horizontal there. Okay, so basically we're trying to eyeball a 1 inch distance. You can stop at this time and go and get a ruler if you would like, but it's really not necessary. But some people prefer that. I'll just do that one more time. So we're going to go straight up and down. The top is going to be horizontal. From here down, we're going to measure about 1 inch, approximately. So it's not life and death. It doesn't have to be super, super, super exact. Okay. Now just take one of those and I'm going to rip it off. So here on my page, I'm just going to tear it away. So now I have my 1 inch, and I'm just going to fold at the top. I'm folding it backwards so I can see my top. And I'm going to fold at the bottom so that now I can see my 1 inch distance. There's my top, there's my bottom. All right, so now that we have done that, I'll give you a second. Let's go on ahead and see if anybody has any questions. So for this 1 inch paper, we're going to use this. This is just going to be our reference. You can get a ruler if you would like. You don't have to. And we just eyeballed it with our straight line, vertical going straight up and down from head to toe. And then at the top, we did a left right. So this is a horizontal line. And then we just eyeballed it to guess from that top, how far down would 1 inch be? And also for a frame of reference, it's approximately on many people's hands from your thumb knuckle, that's closest to your thumbnail, to the end of your thumb. All right, any questions about what we've done so far? We practiced and we have a 1 inch paper that we can use as a reference. Any questions about that? Okay, I'm gonna move on. I'm not seeing any questions. All right, so now on our paper, we're gonna refer to our practice. So the first thing that we're gonna do is starting at the top of our page with an oval, and we want to try to make this oval approximately 1 inch from top to bottom. So you have a nice reference here that we just created. So a 1 inch oval close to the very top of your page, sort of like that. I'm going to zoom in a little more so you can see. And it's approximately 1 inch, and we have our little reference to kind of check. If you want, again, to get a ruler, you can, but you don't have to. Okay, so now that we have our 1 inch happening there, I'm going to tilt my page and let me straighten it up for you a little bit. Now that we have our 1 inch, let's straighten it a little more. Is that better? Yeah, there we go. Now that we have our 1 inch, we are going to do a straight line. Our straight line is going to go all the way down. Okay, so right here at the bottom of this oval, we're going to go all the way down. And that's going to be a representation of the middle of our body. All right, I'm going to zoom back in just to make sure everybody can see. Top of our head is at the top of our page. So this is now going to become our head for our croquis body. It's like an oval shape, similar to a circle, but it's kind of squashed in. And then underneath that, we have a line, and it goes from the middle of this oval all the way down. So now is a good time to check. If your oval is super, super skinny, so here's our practice. If you did an oval that is very skinny, try another one and give yourself more width. Okay, so try another, and that just means take your eraser, erase the first one. If it's too thin, if it's not wide enough, take your eraser, erase it, and then go wider. Because now you know we're going to use that for a head. Okay, so the fashion figures, typically their heads are not super, super wide. And we are going to do a female croquis to start. And once again, that word croquis is C-R-O-Q-U-I. And that's the fashion figure. It's a French word. Okay, do we have any questions about what we've done so far? We have created a situation where we have our head close to the very top of our page, and then we have a line that goes vertically, straight up and down from head to toe. You don't have to have a ruler, but you absolutely can. If you feel like you want a ruler, that's not an issue for me at all. Feel free to grab that ruler. But this is not set up for you to stress out about it. This is just an intro to the beginning of your fashion figure. We also have here our 1 inch approximately piece of paper that we can use as a reference. And that literally, we just created it by drawing straight up and down, and then we put a dash or a horizontal at the top, and then about 1 inch down, just eyeballing it, we put the other horizontal, the left, right. And then we just ripped that off. You can see I ripped it right here and folded the top, folded the bottom, so now I can use this as a reference. So now we're going to go on and continue. So from this point, at the bottom of our oval, which is going to represent our head, we're going to go horizontal, left, right. Just drag your hand left, drag your hand right. Once we do that, that's how we start. We're going to drag this all the way over to the right side. Just kind of let your hand drift. It's not super important that it's perfectly straight. You just don't want it to be super, super crooked. Okay, and we are going to call that number 1. Do we have any questions about that at all at this point? I don't see anything in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to move forward. Now we're going to take this reference that we created here, and we're going to repeat this whole process until we get a total of 9 heads. So that's our head at the very top. That's our number 1 on the right side. Now we're going to take our reference, put it right next to that oval. And now at the bottom of that oval on our center line, going ahead and put another horizontal. So now we know we have another distance for our head. And now let's drag that over to the right. Put number 2. Okay. Let's repeat that process one more time. Take our reference and we line it up at the bottom of the head here. And now we can do our horizontal. And now we know we have a third head, and drag it to the right. Any questions about this? We're going to repeat until we get 9 heads total. Okay, no questions, so I'm going to continue on. So you're lining up your reference, and you're going to mark at the bottom, drag it to the right, put in your number. We're going to go until we have a total of 9 heads. And again, you don't need a ruler, but you can, if you feel more comfortable, have a ruler. But the idea is you need to be able to move at work really quickly. So at work, you will be in a meeting and you'll have to create a croquis on the spot. So you might not have time to get a ruler and take your time and be super diligent. Is it exactly 1 inch? Is it 1 inch and 1/8? Like you won't have time for that. So that's why you want to get used to doing it by eyeballing it as much as possible so that you can work and have your meeting and sketch at the same time. Okay, so now I have marked off spaces for 9 heads total. Do we have any questions about what we've done? We've just done a straight line, we've done an oval, and we did our markings. We have this reference here that helped us to figure out how to keep all of our head spaces even. All right. Next, then, if there are no questions, we're going to label these numbers. Okay, so your fellow classmates in many, many classes, long before you guys have come up with a very interesting, shall I say, acronym. Okay, so it is Horny Alex was caught French kissing Carrie Ann's grandmother. I didn't make it up, but it does prove to be quite effective. So Horny Alex was caught French kissing Carrie Ann's grandmother. So the H is number 1. And A for Alex, that's number 2. 3 is the W, was, he was. Okay, number 4, he was caught. That starts with the letter C. Okay, so Horny Alex was caught. French, that's gonna be an F. Kissing, that's a K. Carrie is gonna be spelled with a C in this case. So that's a C. So Horny Alex was caught French kissing Carrie Ann's. So Ann starts with an A. Grandmother, that starts with a G. All right, so we have labels now for all of our numbers. Horny Alex was caught French kissing Carrie Ann's grandmother. So the idea is that you can remember relatively quickly all of the positions on our body. Okay, so for our croaky body, the first position is our head. So going ahead and write in the word head. Okay. For our croaky body, the second position is a pattern making term, and that is apex. So that is A-P-E-X. Okay. The next position on our croaky body, because we're labeling this from the head all the way down to the toes. So the next is going to be W, and that's going to represent the waist. Okay. The next place is going to be the crotch. That's a pattern making term, and that is at our high hip area, right in between the leg there. That's where your leg opening it starts for your pants or your shorts. Okay. Horny Alex was caught French. So that F stands for fingertip, and that's when your hands are straight up and down, your arms are straight up and down by your side. So fingertip. And we're going to draw our croaky standing straight, and her arms will be by her side, so she won't be bending her arms. So at number 5 is where the fingertip will fall. Again, that is specifically when your arms are straight up and down by your sides, not bending your elbow, but just straight. Okay. So the next one, because remember, we're labeling all of the parts so that it goes from the top of our head all the way down closest to the toe. The next one is going to be the K. So Horny Alex was caught French kissing. That K is for knee. All right, can anybody guess what that C is going to be? Any guesses?
Calf.
Calf.
Yes. Yes. You are absolutely right. That C is representing the calf. Does anybody have an idea what the A could be for?
Ankle.
Yes, jump in there, ankle. And then does anybody guess what the G is for?
Round.
Round, absolutely. Look at you, you guys are on it. Love it. All right, so now we have our positions, and the easy way to remember is just to letter it at first with just the beginning letter. Horny Alex was caught French kissing Carrie Ann's grandmother. And then go back in and fill in. That'll be easy for you to be able to be at work and do what you need to do. Now that we have that, we are going to be referring to our practice. So we're going to start using these symbols here and these letters, and we're going to place it onto our croquis body here to create the female fashion figure, which is the croquis. Okay, so she's standing straight, facing the front, and her arms are going to be straight up and down by her side. So the first thing is we're going to put in different measurements in between here. So these labels are for the basic position. Now we're going to add some specifics as we start drawing. Okay, so you always want to get trained to do the same thing over and over again. That's how you gain your speed. And so the first one that we're going to add is going to be 1.5, and that's the shoulder. So right here, 1 1/2. That is our shoulder, and we abbreviate that with an SH. That's the pattern making abbreviation. So right here, put in a horizontal right around the middle between 1 and 2. Drag it to the left, drag it to the right. That's going to be our shoulder guideline. And again, you can eyeball that because that is what you'll be doing on the job. It's in between 1 and 2. You will not have time to sit with a ruler, and actually you'll see later on as you do it, it'll come quite naturally the more you practice. Next, we're going to use our J shape. So remember we did our J, but we didn't curl it up like a real J in the alphabet all the way curled up. We just curled on the side a little bit. So here, where I have the X, that was our real J. This part here curls all the way up. So we're not doing it that way. We're just going straight and curling a little bit. So that's going to represent the neck on the left side and the right side of our sketch. So let's go on ahead and let's add that. Okay, so here we are starting on the left side. I'm going to go straight, and then I'm going to curve, and I'm going to land on my shoulder guideline. Now we're going to repeat that process on the right side. So notice I'm not too close to the middle because our neck needs to have some width to hold up the head. So here, straight and then curve. And you want to make sure that you land on that shoulder guideline. And it's not life and death. Okay. Now that we have the beginning, we have our oval, which represents the head, and we have a place to put our shoulders. We put a guideline at 1.5. Now let's take a second piece of our scratch paper, and we're going to measure from the top of our head to the shoulder guideline. So here, this is my scratch paper. I am going to put it right on this vertical line. Let me zoom in. Okay, I'm going to put a horizontal here at the top of the head and a horizontal here at 1.5 at the shoulder. So now this is 1.5 heads. So I'm just going to write that. I'm going to turn it to the side, and I'm going to write 1 1/2 heads. Okay. Questions about what I did? I just took my scratch paper that we started working with, and I lined it up here. I'm going to repeat this whole process. I lined it up on my vertical line, that line that goes straight up and down. For us, that's the middle of our body. And then at the top of the head, I put a horizontal dash. At the bottom, at the shoulder guideline that we just put in, I put a second horizontal dash. Okay. And this whole distance that's telling me is 1.5 heads. So I just turn my paper to the side. I'm going to write 1 1/2 heads. Now I'm just going to rip it off, and I'm going to fold it. So here, in that same manner, I'm just going to rip it. I'm going to fold the top, and I'm going to fold the bottom. Now I can use this, and I can keep on moving relatively quickly. So now I have a measurement for 1.5 heads. And I did it quickly. I can still keep working and I can still keep taking notes based on whatever is happening in our design meeting. Any questions about what we've done so far? Okay, so now the easy thing to do here, fold this puppy in half. And I'm folding it in half horizontally. Okay, so the length from 1.5, let me just lay this down once again. You can see that. And now I'm turning it so that it is going from left to right. And I'm just gonna fold that in half. Mark off from your center line over to the end of your paper and put in a vertical dash. That's gonna be the edge of our shoulder on the left. Okay, now move your paper over to the right. You still line it up at the center, and now the right side, put in a vertical dash, just a short vertical line. Now you know how wide the shoulder is gonna be. So for your note taking, your shoulder is located at 1.5 heads. That's from top to bottom, and it's also 1.5 heads for the width. So from the left side to the right side, it's 1.5 heads. So we can see that. Any questions about that? Okay, let's do our diagonal line. So here, this was our practice. We did these diagonal lines both ways. So the guideline goes straight across in a very, very rigid way. But now we're gonna do a diagonal line that starts at the end of our shoulder and it's gonna come down lower just a tiny bit than the guideline. So just a diagonal line, start at the edge of your neck and you stop at your marking. So notice it's lower because human bodies for the female figure have an angle for their shoulders. Let's do the diagonal line going the other way. So from the edge of your neck, bring it down lower. Just a little bit lower than the line. It's not a set amount lower. It could be 1/8 of an inch lower, 1/4 of an inch, or it could be a 1/16 of an inch because humans are shaped very differently. Not everyone has the same shoulder slope. Okay. So I'm going to write that word down. So what we just did was create our angle of our shoulder, and that is called the shoulder. So I'm going to abbreviate it with SH because that's what you'll see in the industry. Slope, SLOPE. So the slope just means the downward angle. Kind of like think about a skiing trip and you ski on the slopes. Those are just the downward angles of whatever hill and mountain you're skiing on. All right, so now everyone has their beginning of the croquis body. Let's see if we have any questions. Okay, moving on, let's do our oval again. This time, we've already identified the edges of our shoulder. So the next oval that we put is going to stop here and here so that we don't make it wider because we've already said that the shoulder is going to only be 1.5 heads wide. So let's do our oval and we're going to make it stop at number 2. So here's a skinnier, smaller oval. And that's going to stop there at number 2. That's going to help to represent the shoulder socket. All right, let's move on. Now that we have the beginnings of our head and our shoulder, let's move on to our waist, which is at 3. So just drag a horizontal line at the waist. So I've just darkened it. Now we're going to go back to our paper where we measured 1 head. And you turn that on its side and fold it in half. We can use this to mark off the width of our waist. So our waist is going to be a total of 1 head wide. So once again, when we started, we measured the top of our head to the bottom of our head, and we said it was about 1 inch. Okay, so that's how we got this piece of paper. We ripped it off right here from our practice. So now if you turn this on its side and fold it in half, you can use this as a reference. So at the waist, line it up at the center line and put a vertical mark on the left, and then move it over, put a vertical mark on the right. So now we know that our waist is going to be 1 inch wide. Okay, I'm going to move that out of the way. Now we're going to do our diagonal line, and we're going to connect these diagonal lines that we worked on, connected from your shoulder socket down to the edge of your waist. So fashion figures have a very short torso. So from the head to the waist is very, very, very short. Very different than regular people. All right, next we're gonna do our smile. So we did our happy faces. So let's do our smile. So that's gonna be the bottom of our bust. So here we are, smile number 1 on the right side. Just don't make it touch the middle line and don't make it touch the sideline. As long as it's a little bit underneath that 2, you are good. And now bust size varies, so you'll place it differently depending on what kind of a body you're creating. But for now, we're just doing basics. So we have a smile here on the left, smile here on the right. Now for the center of the bust, going ahead and put in your dot for the eyes. Remember our happy face? We had our eyes and our smile. That's going to represent the apex. That's the fullest point on the bust, and that's at 2. Okay. Question about what we've done so far. All right, let's move on. Our next horizontal guideline is going to be at 4 1/4. Okay, so we're going to write over here 4 1/4. And because a fashion croquis is really tall, they're taller than the average person, her crotch is not going to be at 4. Her crotch is going to be at 4 1/4. So we can call this the elongated crotch. Okay. So that is the elongated crotch. That's for people who are taller than average.
Question.
Yes.
You wrote down 4 1/2. You meant 4 1/4?
Thank you. It's 4 1/4. Thank you. 4 1/4. Boom. So another way to, thank you so much, Valencia. Another way to say that would be
You're welcome.
a little bit lower than 4. Okay, so let's put in our horizontal line there and drag it left and right. So now we know she's a bit taller than average. If you ever have any friends or family members, or maybe it's even yourself, who are taller than average, sometimes a jumpsuit or a one-piece swimsuit for women is really hard to find because their legs are longer than average. So they always have to break it up with 2 pieces because they do have an elongated crotch. So I would encourage you, if that's not you, talk to people in your life who are taller than average for women and ask them, do you ever struggle with the torso area or the crotch area of a jumpsuit or a one-piece swimsuit? And you'll find that it's pretty common that they don't always fit for people who are taller than average. So that's why we elongate, because it is required for a fashion figure that she is taller than average for our standard figure. Of course, there are exceptions to everything and people do different things. But in general, we're starting off with the standards. Any questions about that? All right, and thank you to Miss Valencia. So now we know that this is going to be our crotch. The next thing that we are going to need is going to be, how wide is the crotch? Well, the crotch is the same width as our shoulder, 1.5 heads. So the easy thing, go back to that little reference paper, fold that puppy in half again, line it up right at the center line, and put a marking on the left side with a vertical line that's very short. Move it over to the right side and for the second mark. So now we're starting to get the hint of our hourglass figure. Shoulders are wider, waist is more narrow, hip is wider. Any questions before we start the next part? Okay. What we'll do is literally this right side or left side of our oval, we're going to use that to create our hip. So I'm going to draw it right. Grab your practice paper. I'm going to darken it and draw it right on top of the oval. I'm just going to do this. Just that bit for my left side of my hip. And this. Just that bit for the right side of my hip. So you just need a very soft curved shape. So here I have the marking of the waist and the marking of our hip. And I'm just going to do a soft curve, just like that. The same type of a soft curve that I have here on the left side and right side of our oval. Okay, do the other side. And remember to just loosen your hand, practice being very relaxed. It's not life and death. This is just to be able to get the hint of a curve, left side, right side at our hip. Now we're gonna do our dash right in the middle. So right here's our dash on that 4 1/4 guideline. So just a little dash, a little horizontal line that goes left and right. Now we are going to take our frown. Remember that happy face that we did? If you tilt this frown to the left, and let me zoom in, you're going to get an idea. That's going to be what we use for our bikini bottoms. And if I tilt it to the right, I'm going to use the opposite side. So let's try that. So here on the right side, I'm going to start at my dash. And this dash is not very wide. This dash is just showing the center of the crotch. So it's not very, very wide. Maybe on your page, it's about 1/8 of an inch wide. So on the right side, I'm going to frown over and just land on my hip. And I'm going to do the same on the left side. The same way you created your smiley face and your frown. Okay, this is the frown. So on the left side, I'm going to frown over. And bikini bottoms change with style, but we're not worried about that right now. We're getting basics. Sometimes they are very high on the legs. Sometimes they're very low. But for now, we're doing standards. Now let's put the smile here, right above. That same smile from our happy face. And now you have bikini bottoms, you have a bust, our neck and shoulder sockets are there. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on then. We're gonna do a long straight line in the middle of each leg opening. Okay, so for her bikini, this is her middle approximately of the leg. So put a little dash at the middle between the crotch and the side of our hip. Same thing on the left side. This is about the middle. Okay, so you start off with a very short line. And now we're going to drag it all the way down. Again, you don't have to have a ruler. You can, but you don't absolutely have to. Question about that? All right, so this is basically if you were taking an x-ray and the x-ray machine could see all the bones inside of your body, this is representing the bone inside all the way down inside of each leg, like the center skeleton in the middle of her body. So now we're going to go to that circle. Remember we talked about circles. At first we did ovals and they weren't so wide. And then later we did some circles. So this circle here is going to go at 6. And it's in the middle, both vertically and horizontally. So notice at my 6th space here, the circle is above it and below it. And then notice here, this skeleton guideline, my circle is to the left of it and to the right of it. So the circle is about a 1/2 inch wide, a little more or a little less depending, but that's the approximation. Make the other circle on the other side. So you're just putting it in the middle. And it can be wider depending on how you're sketching your body. All right, so now the idea is to connect the dots. So we're going to connect the right side of our crotch right here, just with a straight line. Boom, just a straight line, connect the dots. And that's going to be the inside of her thigh. And now we're going to connect the outside of our thigh right here. So just a straight line, boom. And remember, you're trying to make a female fashion figure. So if you feel like your knee is too small, the socket here, redraw it. So you just erase whatever you have, draw your socket bigger if you need to, and you can make it bigger. I'm going to put mine back the way it was, but I'm just showing you, you can make the changes right on this sketch if you feel like anything is off. Okay, so I'm going to put mine back the way it was. Straight line to connect the dots. Do the same on the left side. All right, straight line to connect those dots. So you're making the fashion figure. You got the idea that these are her thighs, and now we have the idea of her kneecap. All right, so now that we have that, let's go down towards the ankle. The ankle here is a little smaller for the socket than our knee. So the knee socket is wider. Oh, let me just darken that. This ankle socket is going to be a little bit smaller. So there we are, going ahead and put in your circle right at 8. Just make sure it's a tiny bit smaller than what you did here for your knee. All right. Now this time we're going to repeat what we did up top here, except we're going to stop shorter. So we're going to start here and put that same soft hip curve, but we're stopping at 6.5. Okay, that same soft hip curve that we did, remember we referred to it as the same type of a shape that we were creating here, the same type of bend that we did on our head. We're adding that down here, but it stops at 6.5. So that's the first one. And now here's my second one. Just make sure that it touches your kneecap. So that knee socket has to touch the beginnings of our calves. Let's do the other leg. So it's a very soft curve stopping at about 6.5. The same type of soft curve that we did here for our hip. All right, now we're going to continue and drag it down so that we can connect our dots. Okay, so here on the left side, I'm going to drag this down. And I didn't land exactly on it, but I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to do the other side. Boom, drag it down. I think I'm going to leave it there. You can make the leg a little more skinnier if you want, a little more thin if you want, but I'm going to leave it the way that it is for my own preference. Okay, do the same thing here. We're coming to connect and drag down. There we are. I'm going to keep that second line. And I'm going to get rid of the first. So I just drag down. All right. So now that we have that, the idea, oh yeah, I'm going to go in and narrow it. I was going to keep it and widen the socket, but I'm going to change my mind on that. All right, so now that we've dragged it down and connected to our ankle socket, you can make a change. So if you feel like, oh no, my ankle socket is just like a little too skinny, you can erase it and redraw it. So if you thought that, get your eraser out, redraw it wider, like I had at first, and then connect it down and land wider. If you feel like it looks awkward, I'm going to put mine back, but this is to show you the entire process of fashion sketching. You are going to make it the way you want it to be. So don't feel like you're stuck with whatever you see. If it doesn't look right or if it looks awkward, you can just erase it and redraw it. Now we're going to do diagonal lines, and this is going to represent our front view of our foot. So we know that the ground is down here at number 9. So let's start at our ankle. Diagonal line comes down and stop just at 9. This is on the inside of our leg. Okay, that's where the big toe is. Now for the outside, a diagonal line is not going to stop at 9. It's going to stop at 8 7/8. So here at the ankle, diagonal line, this stops short. Now we put a smile to connect the two. That is our front view foot. Okay, so that same diagonal line that we did here when we were practicing, we are using that for our front view for our foot. It just is a diagonal line that on the inside, it starts at the ankle socket, and then it comes all the way down to 9. On the outside, it starts at the ankle socket, but it stops higher than 9, just a little bit higher. And then our smile connects the two. Just make sure that down here is a little wider, and up here at the ankle, it's more narrow. That's our front view foot. And there's really no right or wrong measurement, just as long as it looks okay and is in balance with the rest of your sketch. All right, let's do it again. Here I am on the inside of my leg, and that's all the way down to number 9 because that's the big toe. Now I'm on the outside and I'm going diagonal, but I'm going to stop before I get to 9 and the smile to connect the two. So there's my smile. And now I have our front view. And now you can see you have a body with really long legs and a short torso. Now let's move on. Before we move on to the arms, do we have any questions? All right, 2 diagonal lines, starting here at the edge of our socket, all the way down to 4 1/4. That's line 1. And notice I have some space because I need to put the hand. It's not touching the thigh. Okay, let's do this again. Left side, drag down, give yourself some space. That's the skeleton. That's like the bones on the inside of your arm. So we always start off with guidelines. Now let's put in our socket for our elbow. And this time it's going to be on the inside of the body. So right here at 3, go on ahead and put a circle. Now we're just going to do a diagonal line. This diagonal line aims up to the bottom of our bust. Okay, now on the outside of our arm, right at the shoulder, let's start off with a frown. Right here we have a frown, and just bring it down to line number 2. So just that little bit of a frown right there from the shoulder curving downward, and it stops on the right side of our vertical line, and it stops at number 2. Now we're going to give that soft curve and then come back down. That's your arm for the upper portion of our sketch. Now, if she feels like it's too wide, guess what? Erase it and draw it more narrow. So there's no such thing as if I drew it wrong, I have to keep it. That doesn't exist. All right, so that's the right side of our arm for the upper portion of the body. Let's go on ahead and do the lower portion. So we need to have a socket at 4 1/4 for the wrist. Okay, so there we are, 4 1/4. This one is in the middle. That elbow socket was on the inside though, but this wrist socket is in the middle of our vertical line. So our sockets are more.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Does that wrist socket sit
at
In
4
the middle, like we did that for the knee, or it sits like just right on top of the 4
4 1/4. It sits at 4 1/4.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's do our soft curve here, starting from the elbow socket, and that's just to get you started. Just like we did for our leg, that very soft curve that was on the same soft curve we did on the side of our head. Just to get your arm started, now drag it down, landing on the inside and the outside of your wrist socket. Okay, now what if you say, oh, I don't like it? Erase it and do it again. There is no such thing as you are stuck. Okay, so soft curve, bring it in. What if you say, oh, I don't like the other side? Erase it, do it again. Soft curve, drag it down. Now we have the arm on the right side. Let's do the arm on the left side. Okay, our socket here goes on the inside of 3 for the elbow, and diagonal line aims up towards the bust. Now for the shoulder, we have a frown. It just comes down to 2, and it's to the left of our line. So we have this guideline, but the top of our shoulder just comes to the left. Okay, and now drag down. You don't have to land exactly on it. All right, let's do our soft curves and get ready for the forearm. So first we need a socket at 4 1/4. There we are. And then we need our soft parenthesis. Soft parenthesis to start, or a soft, like the shape of the hip. Now drag it down. Drag down. And if you say, oh, I did it, let's just say you did it this way. Oh, it's too wide. What are you gonna do? You're gonna take your eraser and redraw it. So I'm gonna put mine back like I had it originally, but just in case if you felt it was too wide, that's what you do. You are not stuck. Now we're gonna do our hand with our diagonal line. Diagonal line on the right side from 4 1/4 to 4 1/2. And now another line that is straight that stops at 5. Okay, the top of this portion from 4 1/4 to 4 1/2, that's shorter. A little bit. It's gonna appear shorter because the top of the wrist is there. And you'll see right now it's even the way it looks, but once you put in your fingers, you'll see that it will appear shorter when we're done. Okay, so we have the outer portion of our hand on the right. Let's do the outer portion of our hand on the left. So from our wrist, we go diagonal, stops at 4 1/2, slightly towards the left. Then we come from there straight down, stops at 5. That's the outer fingertip. Now let's do the thumb. So here at our wrist, we go diagonal towards the body, very short line to start. And the second part, bring that down straight. That's the beginning of our thumb. This is nothing more than 2 diagonal lines. Okay, that's the beginning. And literally it is the same diagonal lines. It's just shorter and longer. Okay, let's do the left side. Diagonal goes towards the right and it's short. And then the second part goes straight down. That represents the beginning of our thumb. So now let's put in our J shape for the flesh on our fingers. So let me zoom in so that you can see it. We'll start here on the left side. So for the J shape, I'm gonna go about here, straight down and curve towards the left. Okay. That is the same kind of a J that we practice here where it's not too curved. So I went straight and curved towards the left. Now I'm gonna go straight and curve towards the right. So this will be for my thumb. And now I have a space and I can put a diagonal line to connect. That's a hand for our fashion figure. Okay. And if you say, oh, but I think I put the J too close, erase it, move it over. If you say I put the J too far away, erase it and move it closer. All right, let's do the opposite side. So we are going to go straight and curve left. That connects for our thumb. And then now we're going to go straight and we're going to curve right. And that's going to connect for our fingertip. And now we have a diagonal line. Fill in that space. So you have been able to use your entire grammar. Can you imagine? Grammar came into play here. We did commas, frowns, smiles, kindergarten stuff came into play, happy faces, diagonal lines, half diamonds, triangle shapes, all that stuff. Literally, here we have right here, that's like your half of a diamond shape. You can go through and you can see everything. Here's like your J for the neck. You have your smile for the bust and the eyes for your happy face. Everything that you've done has allowed you to create a very, very standard croquis body. So your homework is to do this 10 times, but it's not due on Monday because Monday's Labor Day. So you won't have it due until next week, Wednesday. So I will upload that assignment when I'm done with levels 2 and 3, but it's literally to redraw with all the labels, all the numbers, all the guidelines, exactly what we've done here. You're going to repeat this 10 times, take a picture of it and upload it by Wednesday next week because Monday's Labor Day, so we can't meet. Questions?
Okay, so you said draw 3 times and then upload it.
10 times.
Oh, 10 times. Draw 10 times.
Yep, you're going to repeat exactly what we did. All the labels, the numbers, the guidelines in the exact same order. The recording will be there for you on your announcement section so that if you're stuck, you can always go to that. And you can also go to our YouTube channel. And there are tons of croquis that I have put in the same manner using the same technique.
Okay.
But this croquis that we just did is just straight up and down, no moving. That's the one that's assigned and you have to do 10 of them.
Okay.
And it'll be due when we meet again. I'm just gonna pull up my calendar so I can give you the exact date. Your exact date is going to be September 6th. That's our next class. So September 6th. It has to be uploaded by midnight, but that will be on the assignment. Even though we meet at 6 p.m., I give you until midnight to upload. That's for most of your assignments. So this is Wednesday because Monday is Labor Day. So this is 10 sketches. Front view, female croquis. Any other questions? I will upload this video at probably tomorrow morning because I'll be done late tonight with levels 2 and 3. And it'll be located and housed on your Canvas shell under announcements. So I will embed the video just like I did before. And if you didn't get to see last class, that video was there.
Did we put our names on the croquis?
So you're
itself?
uploading the picture yourself of the work, so your name isn't necessary, but I would just say, meaning that when you upload your homework on Canvas, your name is
Yes, like on the croquis drawings.
right. No, I'm saying the assignment, it's not necessary to write your name like Susan Smith here
Oh, okay.
because it only shows up under your account. So
Okay.
your name automatically is there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. But you can write your name. That's not a problem for me.
It's for authenticity's sake. So you can be sure.
You can write it, but honestly, if you were going to be, not you, but if anybody was going to be sneaky, They could just take a picture of somebody else's work and then upload it. And that wouldn't make it authentic. You know what I'm
Oh.
saying? Like they could write their name on someone else's work.
Right, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So it doesn't make it more true that they actually did it because their name is there. But chances are it's your work because it's your account. You're logged in. So that is something that will be helpful just for everybody to know. It shows up under your own account. And so the school is believing that it is you because it's under your account. That's a very good question. Other questions? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording and I am going to let you